Picking up on where we left off in context of the clientele segment, this session will focus on innovation, reimagining to mitigate crisis. We have three leaders joining us in this session. Please join me in welcoming Jen Baxter, Senior Vice President, Tech Strategy and Performance, GlaxoSmithKline, and Elisabeth Staudinger, President, Asia Pacific, Siemens Healthcare. And our chair for the session, Debashis Chatterjee, CEO and Managing Director, Mindtree. Debashis has over 30 years of experience in the field of IT, spanning customer relationship management, building and managing large business units, strategic alliances, M&As, change management and delivery management across multiple industries, business domains, technologies, and geographies. The stage is all yours. Over to you, Debashis.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you for the introduction. It gives me great pleasure to be chairing this interesting discussion with two women leaders on the front lines of healthcare transformation led by digital. The impact of the pandemic needs no restating. It has brought immense pressure on businesses in terms of capacity, accessibility, and coordination, and made us question a lot of preconceived notions and accelerate the adoption of technology to gain competitive advantage. While the crisis has tragically cost us lives, it has also made us realize the hard work and the value of our frontline workers, along with the healthcare institutions that support them. We owe a great deal to them for promising signs of recovery that we are seeing now. Today, we have with us two women leaders who represent eminent companies helping make the world a better and healthier place. Jen Baxter, Senior Vice President, Strategy and Technology Transformation at GlaxoSmithKline, and Elisabeth Staudinger, President, Asia Pacific at Siemens Healthcare. Welcome, Elisabeth. Welcome, Jen. And maybe we can do a bit of quick introductions about yourself before we get started into the sessions. Jen?
That sounds great. Thanks so much, DC. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. I'm excited to share with you some of our journey at GlaxoSmithKline, where I've been for 22 years. I've been fortunate to be in roles from R&D to investor relations to the office of the CEO and now in the tech organization. And my responsibility is to curate and enable the cross-tech strategy, which is transforming GSK to be a more digitally led and data-led company underpinned by great technology. And that includes building technical capability, digital capability, which of course requires different ways of working. And so is very integral with the culture that we're building. It includes our strategic partnership program, which is a huge enabler for everything that we do in driving innovation and delivery. I'm accountable for a global capability center in Poland, which is very complementary to the global capability center that we're building in Bengaluru now, which is going to be a very important part of our overall tech organization and ecosystem. And I'm also accountable for areas where tech is the headlights for the organization. So that's the agile transformation, which really started in the tech organization, but is stretching out into the business now. Also our data and analytics capability across the organization and our Horizon 3 disruptive innovation. So looking forward to talking with you both today. Elisabeth.
Well, thanks, Jen, and thank you for the really interesting introduction. So I'm responsible for the business of Siemens Healthineers in Asia Pacific. I'm actually based out of China, the place where the pandemic started and where we went through the first experiences when it was really not clear yet how that whole pandemic would evolve and also how dangerous it would be. Siemens Healthineers is a company which was in many ways at the core of helping support the response to the pandemic, because we are at the core of the healthcare infrastructure by providing both imaging equipment, which is very crucial in diagnosing, treating, and monitoring disease, but also by providing a lot of different testing capabilities across the entire spectrum. I've spent my entire career, a bit like Jen, in Siemens and later on Siemens Healthineers. It's been an amazing journey, starting from procurement on the one side of the value chain, eventually transitioning all the way now to more customer-facing roles and being based in a country in a large region for Siemens Healthineers, after also having spent quite some time in headquarter functions.
That's great. Thank you for the introduction. So Jen and Elisabeth, you have been vocal proponents of how technology can enable organizations to stay agile, collaborative, and competitive. Can you please take a few minutes to share your perspectives on how do you see digitalization in your industries and your experiences with technology-led transformation? Maybe Elisabeth, you want to start?
Thank you, DC. If you look at digitalization, and especially in the connection to healthcare, it's one of the main and big and leading mega trends we are experiencing. And as a company that is very closely connected to technology and innovation, this is, of course, a fantastic opportunity for us and also an obligation to really embrace the possibilities of digitalization and help to bring healthcare truly to a next level. And if you look at the ways how digitalization can and will impact healthcare, it comes in multiple dimensions. One of the dimensions is that it will, and already today enables us to make medicine and treatment more precise and more personalized. It's totally transforming the way how care is delivered. If you just think of more remote settings, or if you think about monitoring capabilities which become available. And it's also a way that fundamentally influences the experience of the patient. Yeah, because as a patient, if you are connected through your care to your care providers, and if you take ownership, or it enables you to really take ownership of your own health and completely changes the way how patients connect to the healthcare systems. So in that regard, digitalization is a very, very fundamental mega trend, which has huge implications for us as a company, but also for the people and for healthcare systems globally. And then, of course, there also is this internal dimension for us as a company, that we, as the way how we work, we, of course, also have many ways of leveraging the opportunity digitalization brings to making companies more efficient, more transparent, more data-driven, and in many ways enabling companies to raise performance levels.
Jen?
Thanks, Elisabeth. I think, really similar things that we're, that I'm seeing. I mean, I think everything from the early stages of research and development and using AI and ML to identify genetically validated targets, which dramatically increases the probability of success of those targets ultimately becoming medicines, to how we improve, our inventories using all of the data that we have available to have a more efficient system and more efficient way of getting medicines to patients, and AI ML powering how our sales reps know what is the next best action they could take to engage with their customers, healthcare practitioners. So you can see, throughout our value chain where digital capabilities is really fundamentally transforming how we do what we do, how we do it faster, how we do it more efficiently, how we connect with our customers, how we connect with our patients and understand what is really driving their needs. Everything from smart glasses, which enable more remote activity and mean that we can operate entire significant elements of our manufacturing facilities remotely, to automation of our financial systems. You can just see it literally throughout the value chain exploding and the potential that there is.
No, that's great. So let's just shift to COVID. I think this has been obviously a very unprecedented situation. And interestingly, Elisabeth, you are based in China, where it originated, and Jen, you are in the US, where we had a severe impact. Uh, can you share your experiences in terms of your learnings, as you navigated through this crisis and getting into the new normal? Maybe Jen, you can go first.
Yeah, thanks, DC. I mean, some huge learnings, and I think it goes without saying, as you said in the introduction, just what a phenomenally challenging time this has been for so many people on many levels. I think the positive that you can take out of this, I think number one, the privilege that I think I know I feel, and I know all GSK employees feel, and all healthcare employees feel, to be the privilege to be in a company and an organization that has such a strong purpose connected to COVID solutions and to helping find a way through this incredible pandemic. It means not only are our people and employees incredibly motivated to work through what we need to do to make sure we continue to get medicines and vaccines to patients, but it also means that our partners, our strategic partners, and the third parties that we rely really heavily on, prioritize helping us make sure that we don't disrupt our business, and that we do find innovative solutions. And great example of that, where Microsoft, one of our strategic partners, worked with us to stand up a lab that was in support of the NHS that we did in partnership with AstraZeneca and the University of Cambridge for early COVID testing. And we stood that lab up in a matter of 6 weeks when it would have normally taken 6 months. I think a second lesson is again connected to that, is really the benefits that we've seen of having truly strategic partners, where our partners have stepped up in a way to really help us navigate through the changes. So another one of our partners, Viva, really worked closely with us really quickly on to give us licenses to a specific module that helped our sales reps interact with their customers remotely. So moving from what they're very used to in a face-to-face setting to remote super quickly, which meant that we could, continue those relationships. And I think just the pace at which that happened was really impressive. And I think, that just shows us the lesson of when we really focus and when we've really, got that drive of a clear purpose, what we can do. And I think the third lesson that we learned is really just that trust is key. So again, in these relationships, as we were figuring out how we move to having literally thousands of associates of our strategic partners working remotely in a series of days when lockdown in India happened pretty quickly, just the response and the trust that was required to be able to make decisions and move at that degree of pace with a number of our partners, TCS and Wipro and Cognizant and TechM. I mean, there were just incredible trust and partnership in figuring out how we navigate that and what technology needs to be put in place really quickly so that we could do that in a secure and compliant way. So, some really eye-opening lessons for us. And within GSK, we've been trying to think about how do we take those lessons around focus and around connection to purpose and really carry those forward beyond the pandemic.
Great.
Elisabeth, love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think, Jen, you're addressing this topic of purpose, which is truly a very amazing experience in a way, as someone or another company active in healthcare. And it was really many conversations and experiences in these moments where you realize that what you do or what the team does really matters and makes a difference. So this is a very rewarding experience, and probably amongst all the challenges everybody has been going through, there have been some truly bright spots as well, I would say, in this realization. And I mean, as the whole situation unfolded in China about almost exactly a year from now, I mean, there was a lot of uncertainty. No one really knew what is this? What is it going to be? How dangerous is it? At the same time, I mean, there was a clear need for a company like us to step in and look at how can we make sure that the healthcare system keeps running. that in a situation where people cannot flow in and out freely anymore, well, spare parts maybe cannot easily be transported into the area. How can we make sure that we support the best we can and make sure that the infrastructure and the equipment which is available is operational and can do and perform the services it's intended to do? A second and very big aspect of this was, of course, how can we ensure that the teams and the people who need to go in, who need to be on site, who have to work with healthcare professionals, that they're safe, yeah, and that they are taken care of. And then we, of course, also had this third dimension of making sure that operations keep running, and operations in the sense of switching from working office-based to working remotely within a matter of a few days. And you've been describing a bit, I mean, there is tens of thousands of people who from one day to the next almost switch to working from home, making sure you have all the infrastructure in place, making sure that the IT works. And I have to say that was one of the areas where I was very impressed by the teams, how smooth this was in a way. You know, of course, suddenly everybody had to expand capacity, and it was not always totally perfect, but it worked. The people stood together, and the people did what it takes to make things work and to keep going. We also had quite some challenges around supply chain, since we have big manufacturing sites in China, which also, for instance, use parts coming out of India. And there were quite a few heartbeat moments looking at, so how do we make sure that we maintain and keep our supply chains running, and that we can ensure that we deliver and meet our commitments, especially since the products coming out of Shanghai is one of the most important ones from our side that were required to manage the pandemic. In terms of learnings, I mean, there is, of course, I mean, there is this element of connecting to your purpose in a much more immediate way, I would say. And there also is, of course, this experience of being able to work remotely, being able to adjust within a matter of days to a totally new way of engaging and of getting things done. And I mean, thinking back now a year when suddenly no one was going to the office anymore, it felt really odd and strange in a way. And now a year into the pandemic, I do hear quite a bit from teams from different countries where they say, I'm not so sure I'm so keen to really go back to the office full time anymore. So going forward, I don't want to go back. So it's not going back to normal. It's really looking for this new normal and capturing the experience and the learnings and the insights of this past year, and look at how we want to shape kind of a working life going forward into the future, which will be different from what it used to be.
Oh, that's great. And you know, frequently we know that this technology transformations involve cultural as well as behavioral changes, and looks like both of you have been driving a lot of change. Is there one or two things that you can share which has been the hardest, but at the same time the most fulfilling aspect in your experience of driving such changes? Maybe Elisabeth, we can start with you.
I mean, for me, the hardest, personally, the hardest impact, or the most difficult to accept, was that, I mean, from one day to the next, I stopped traveling. I've not left China for a year now. And I used to be one of these people who move around a lot, yeah, because I would visit customers, visit the teams in the different parts of Asia Pacific. So for me, that was a huge shift. And it's one I continue to struggle with. I have to say, this missing possibility to connect with people in real life, yeah, and not just online. For me, one of the upsides of this hard stop, so to say, that COVID imposed on us, is that, for instance, formats like the one we are going through right now emerged. That suddenly there is conversations taking place using digital means where it doesn't matter anymore who is where and whether anybody can travel or not. And that you can somehow shrink the distances between countries, between different parts of the world in a way that was maybe imaginable already before, but was nothing which really would happen regularly. And for me, this is one of the big gifts, so to say, we are gaining from this crisis, is that the way of communicating horizontally a bit regardless of who is where really has created a new quality of exchange, which I've not experienced previously.
That really resonates for me, Elisabeth. I really agree with all of that. I think, you know, as you say, being able to connect with your team and, you know, to be together, and it's the sort of downtime, the informal time, the catching people in the hallway, that's the stuff that it is the hardest to sort of recreate, I think. You know, I think one of the things that has been really inspiring to see, and I think it is part of GSK culture, that it's just really come out through this pandemic, is the care that people have for each other. So learning to understand and respect that everybody's going through something different. Some people are trying to homeschool their children at the same time as they're trying to work. Some people, you know, are on their own and, you know, in a lockdown and quarantine, and, you know, families going through different things. So everybody has different risks at different issues at different times of the day. So what's been awesome has been to see the care that people have for each other, of understanding, like, how do I help you do your best and give you the space that you need to deal with what you need to deal with in your life. So I think that's been happening just at a very human level. And what's also been great is we've introduced a program that we're calling Performance with Choice, which really means exactly as you said earlier, Elisabeth, we're not going to go back to the way things were before, but what does it look like going forward in terms of how do we give our people the choice to work when and where they want to be able to perform at their best for themselves and with their teams. And so we've started, you know, it's a little bit early now because we're still, you know, in lockdown in many cases, but as we start to move out of that, you know, we'll be having those discussions with teams to say, how do you want to, you know, and letting people sort of shape and create what that new normal is, with a real focus on how do we make sure that we're performing, but doing it where we've got as much choice for our employees as possible. So, you know, while it's been an incredible and continues to be an incredibly challenging environment, I think people are finding their way through it and, you know, trying to help and support each other as best as possible. But, you know, nothing recreates that sort of human connection of actually, you know, being in the same room. So how do we find the balance of optimizing the new ways that we found of working, but really being able to retain, you know, the human connection as well.
No, that's great. My last question is maybe we can start with you, Jen. Is how do you see India, both as a market as well as a talent base for your business?
I guess first I have to say, when you ask me that question, the first thing that comes to mind is that it is beautiful. It is an incredibly beautiful place, and I have been on vacation a few times, and, you know, both, you know, what struck me is just, you see joy, you know, in people in places that you wouldn't expect. And the food is incredible. Yeah, so there's, I think, generally, it's a place that I think is amazing in terms of a market, and, you know, I mean, just incredible breadth of talent and depth of talent. And I think, you know, as I mentioned, we're building our global capability center there, and just really excited that we're going to be able to tap into that. I think already, you know, we have incredible associates throughout our strategic partners who do amazing work for us. And I think, you know, the response that we saw through COVID of our associates was just incredibly inspiring, because I know there were some really, you know, difficult challenges that people were facing on a personal level, whether they were, you know, living with their families or not with their families, or, you know, temporary housing. So, I mean, there were some incredible challenges, and, you know, just the commitment that people showed to work through that was really, really inspiring. So I think for a lot of reasons, we're really excited about building up our, an important part of the tech organization there and really accessing the depth, that is clearly there and across the board, and particularly in Bengaluru. Elisabeth.
For us, India also is many different things. First of all, it is of course an attractive and interesting market. There is still a lot of healthcare need that needs to be met, and we are very committed to being part of this journey of, together with the people in India, to help to build and improve the healthcare infrastructure. And actually digitalization is a very powerful lever to accelerate this buildup of the healthcare system and making healthcare more accessible all across the country. But India for us is truly not only a market, it's also a place where we are tapping into the digital talent, like GSK is doing it, Jen, you've been describing it, many other companies do. We were very early, so we started building a team in Bangalore already 2 decades ago, and we are continuing to invest. We recently announced 160 million euro investment into a new campus in Bangalore, where we will further expand our footprint when it comes to really tapping into the digital talent in India, leveraging the capability, the bright minds of the people in India to help us push and drive our digitalization agenda for the world, essentially. This new campus will also be hosting manufacturing activities, as well as will become the headquarters of our organization in India. So we will create this campus and ecosystem where we have many different aspects of the business in one place. And we do believe that we will be able to benefit from this way beyond just serving a very important market for us. And then there is a third dimension which we are adding to, on top of serving the market, manufacturing there, and tapping into the digital talent. And this is, we've started to engage a lot more intensively with the innovation ecosystem in India. There is a very active startups scene that has emerged over the past years, and we've now started to also really task people to spend their days looking at who is there, what do these companies do, how can we connect with them, how can we collaborate, how can we partner to drive and create innovation coming from India, originating from India, and then potentially impacting the world way beyond India.
And I should just add, DC, quickly, that I don't think I mentioned. I'm sort of thinking about what we're building now with our kind of new global capability center within tech. But we also have, obviously existing operations, in India, and our commercial organization and our R&D organization. So I want to make sure that I, pay good homage to those important parts of our organization as well.
No, that's great. That's terrific. So we have come to the end of the session. I think my most important takeaway is that a lot of changes have happened during the pandemic. Technology has always played a crucial role in our business, but technology has played a very crucial role during this entire pandemic, which has been a lot of unexpected disruptions, truly challenging the status quo. But there has also emerged a tremendous opportunity to redefine possibilities in the new normal, and together we can all come out stronger. Thank you very much, Elisabeth and Jen, for sharing your perspectives and making this a lively conversation. I wish both of you continued success. Back to you, Shreya.
Thank you so much, Debashis, Jen, and Elisabeth, for putting the spotlight on what matters in times as we've been through. The role and importance of frontline workers is where the spotlight was on, and the digitalization of healthcare as a mega trend and the personalized approaches to care that has enabled individuals to take ownership of their health. It's only been half a day, and these sessions are such a stellar lineup of both sharp content and articulate speakers. Hope this version of NTLF is giving you tons to take away.